In this edition of Designer Notes, we're going to review another release from Swedish design shop Nezumi. We're also going to discuss the curious state of Hodinkee in our blueprint for mediocrity. And finally, we're going to properly pronounce Rolex best-selling model. Celebrating its first decade, Nezumi Studios has been making a name for itself and creating some really successful watch collections. We reviewed the Voiture a few weeks ago, but this time around we're going to take a look at its more affordable sibling, the Corbeau. And this one has Milspec written all over it. This video is brought to you by Nezumi Studios. David Campo, founder of Nezumi, created the Corbeau as a tribute to his grandfather, who had a decorated career in the Swedish Air Force. From unpacking this timepiece, it's very clear that it has this 60s and 70s spirit with a more modern heartbeat. The dimensions are about average at 40 and 47 millimeters respectively. A definite advantage of this mecha quartz caliber is the thin profile of the case. This is further assisted by a solid case back, which also adds to the vintage look. I love the high contrast of the dial as well as how it fits on my small wrist. My preference for 40mm cases is a constant in this channel, and this chronograph passes that wrist check test. All I need is a flight suit and I can be anyone's wingman anytime. This style of watches is popular within the collector circle. It drops much of the glitz and glam in favor of raw utility. The crown here sets just the time, much like a no-nonsense flight chief. There's also some ample real estate on the crown to ensure the grip is optimal. Although it's battery operated, there's still mechanical elements to this chrono. Every push feels like a satisfying action because of its mechanical module. But the accuracy is multiple times better. And then the bezel, another source of sensory euphoria. It also functions as a marker for your elapsed time. I used it for the chronograph hand here, but you can use it for the minute hand as well. It's clear that the Corbeau ticks all the boxes of a tool watch. But what about a fun watch? Nezumi made sure that the strap changes are fun and easy to do. No editing necessary for this clip. I'm using another Nezumi strap for this demonstration, and I must say it's all done in good taste. Vintage watches often have this single-tone straps matching the military uniform. With the amount of strap material, there is a good range of wrist sizes available for this setup. This black strap also pairs well with that high contrast but mostly dark dial. This now gives me the Leonidas and University of Geneva vibes to it. On my wrist, it fits just fine, although the fabric may feel a little rough at first. You can wear this on your bare wrist, or if you feel a little more adventurous, over a bomber jacket. Let's throw in a striped NATO and change the look completely. This may still pass off as a military watch, but it now sways towards the racing crowd. This Artem strap features some polished hardware that kinda clashes with the Corbeau's brushed exterior. A reasonable compromise for the sake of looking cool. But let's throw out the strap for a moment and give some attention to the spring bars and lugs. I love that Nezumi did not cut corners on this part of the watch. Not only is the lugs drilled, but the spring bars are thick and very robust. I used these same bars on this long overlook engineer bracelet, and the Corbeau transforms into a heavy-duty timepiece. Admittedly, the angular links would clash with the curvier case profile, but the brush finish works seamlessly to match the case texture. Finally, let's see how a sailcloth strap could work with this thing. It's not bad either, but I feel that the NATO strap works better. I like how the padded strap gives a needed volume that complements the case. Seeing all that, it's likely that you'll be dressing this down or sideways. Dressing this up may be a bit of a stretch to many. You'll find out why as we slide this under a macro lens. When the only polished surface on your watch is the crystal, brush lines or matted facets will dominate the surface. But it's never boring on this, as that Nezumi signature piques your interest. There's also a similar signature on the buckle, a welcome gesture. And what about that stunning case back that has this motorsports grille pattern within the inlay? The dial also delivers some subtle texturing. There's no applied indexes and most of the design is printed on. I like it when the text also reflects light around its rims. This same principle applies to the aluminum bezel. As light rolls over it, the variation of reflections gives personality to the piece. One thing that I didn't like is how the markers split the two-digit numbers apart. I would have rather shortened this marker down than separate the numerals. Speaking of numerals, all of them are adequately loomed, including the ones that are on the bezel insert. These are incredibly potent and beautiful to look at. Let me reiterate, this is a Milspec style chronograph. It looks the part without the certification nor price tag. That's actually a good thing. Remember, we just had a moon watch that's neither certified to go to the moon nor professional enough to hold its own pump pushers. The Corbeau is a lot more fun to play with while practically having the same price and is made of good old cold steel. Here's hoping to see other motorsports or vintage style watches, because when Nezumi does it, it's going to be done right. Coming in at $289, the Corbeau is as affordable as a mecha quartz can be, and at the same time delivering the aesthetics and functionality of a Milspec watch. So the Nezumi Corbeau is another successful collection from Nezumi. Now before we move on to our next segment, we would like to mention our sponsor SKXMOD. This is a self-inflicted sponsorship. They didn't ask me to do this, but I'm doing it anyway because I owe them quite a bit. They sent me this a month ago and I'm still not done with the video. They actually sent me this full kit that includes the tools and some extra straps to play around with. And I'm actually using one of them right now, and this is the GA2100 on a Royal Oak homage bracelet. It also includes that crown, and the watch review, well, the kit review will be out soon, so watch out for that, and thanks so much for SKXMOD. Now, the watch community is recently hit with a number of controversies, whether it's the watch market crashing or the journalistic side of the hobby being questionable. Hodinkee has played a key role in many of these. Now, are we seeing a change for the worse? Now, when I began as a watch enthusiast, there's 3 websites that I frequent: Blog the Watch, SJX, and of course, Hodinkee. Now, I view, as many of you do, Hodinkee as the premier watch resource of the web. It has some great writing and the photography is fantastic. In fact, I actually modeled my YouTube channel around the aspirations that one day it will be at the same quality as that of Hodinkee. However, things have changed in the past months that has got me thinking Hodinkee might be headed for mediocrity. Don't get me wrong, the content that Hodinkee brings is still very informative and accessible. Hodinkee is the foremost destination for all things in the world of horology, making watches and information about them accessible to all. From microbrands to high horology, Hodinkee has got you covered. Since 2008, you can read all of this and some more, like interesting stories, arts, history, and culture. Ben, Jack, and James are my favorite writers, and like many of you, I follow their content as articles and especially as videos. They're mostly fascinating and often entertaining. And who can forget that John Mayer interview? This is the Hodinkee that I know as my interest for watches grew. This is a very strong identity that many brands strive to be at, collecting accolades and recognition. The content that they put out certainly is a product of this carefully crafted reputation. But then, there's the decline. Last month, Hodinkee got over 3.4 million visits to their website. People are visiting on average 2.83 pages, which pretty much means that people would come on the landing page and then click on one of the articles and then leave. This is in itself not bad. It's actually pretty typical of popular web destinations. What's alarming though is the trajectory of organic traffic. Back in March 2022, they had over 600,000 visits for the United States fans. Last month, however, it slid down to 380,000. That's almost half of what they made in March. What could have caused this decline? The first element in the blueprint is likely the pandemic. We'd hope that this decline was a mere anomaly, but if we put this in a graph, it's the lowest they've been since June 2019. This can be attributed to the pandemic as it's had this similar effect in Netflix and Disney Plus viewerships. People are less likely to frequent Hodinkee simply because they're back to their work and not at home browsing. With this kind of reasoning, the rise in traffic may have been caused or attributed to people having a lot more time browsing because they couldn't go anywhere. But with more exposure, there's more room for criticism. This brings us to the next element, which is the growing negativity towards Hodinkee because of bias. In August 2020, when Hodinkee released its travel clock, it's a $5,000 hand-wound clock that you can travel with at a time when you can't travel due to the pandemic. Is it bad timing? Maybe. The price? Well, it's a source of rage and criticism. Some cite the expensive value proposition while others scoff at the rarity of the item, which then drives the price higher. Either way, it was sold out quickly, which shows the buying power of Hodinkee's patrons. Another is the Hodinkee insurance policy. Insurance policies of any kind is a subjective business model that leverages peace of mind for a fee. Personally, I do not see any problem in insuring your assets, but many people think that this business model does not belong from the place where they get their horological content. This same principle can be applied on the articles about watches in the Hodinkee shop. A voice in the web that talks about a product is generally held to a high, unbiased position. When they start selling the said product that they are talking about, the credibility of the voice now becomes a biased promoter under the influence of the product's brand. I experienced this same conundrum with this very YouTube channel. My content is obviously sponsored by most of the watches I review. There will be influences from the sponsor that will affect the review. It is inescapable. But I'm an ant to Hodinkee's lion. If my channel were to disappear tomorrow, it won't be missed, like Hodinkee would be. And that brings us to likely the last element working against Hodinkee, the departure of Jack Forster. As a constant stalwart figure of the company, Jack brings a veteran gray-headedness that appeals not just for the seasoned enthusiast, but also the new breed like me. Whenever Jack talks, we noobs collectively nod our heads, saying, "Oh, this guy's got it. Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks, Jack." Jack is our watch dad. However, last month, Jack moved to Watchbox, one of Hodinkee's competitors and home of Tim Musso, our popular watch geek friend whom we tell our friends we know even though we're continents apart from each other. The shock was clearly felt around the web. It's like the Celtics getting Magic Johnson at the height of Larry Bird's career. It shows how Watchbox is winning more enthusiast hearts by being a merchant that offers deep quality watch content. By design, they are a business of a trade and not just a journalist that's trying to sell you his content. With Jack on board, Watchbox adds another voice of credibility while Hodinkee loses a big chunk of theirs. And this is how Hodinkee is now redesigned today. A watch resource that may or may not have a bias for the things that they sell. This by design chips away from any brand strength that Hodinkee has or may have had when Jack was on board. Hodinkee, the brand, used to walk with pride and prestige worn on its vest despite being a businessman under the hat, but not anymore. I'm willing to continue consuming Hodinkee's content and maybe even in the near future buy something from their shop. However, I cannot help but think that Hodinkee right now and the way their offices are lit is a blueprint for mediocrity. And now for our segment that has an uninspired title, Viewer Comments. I posted a community post. Okay, wow, that's also uninspired, and asked you, what do you think about Hodinkee being a journalist and merchant? Now, Watchdog Podcast says, it doesn't really bother me, though I do know that not to take it as a gospel and search out other articles and videos. Worn and Wound does the same thing, yet it's always Hodinkee that gets bashed. Unfortunately, this is a product of being famous. Criticisms are always louder, and the possible outcomes may be more impactful the more you scale up in your popularity. Now, Fratello is also doing the same thing, but most of the watches that they're selling in their shop are actual collaborations from other brands, and they're far in between. They're not really a watch box that trades thousands of pieces, nor like Hodinkee, who has stock of these watches to keep. To Hodinkee's defense, they are marking their shop articles as in the shop, so you know that these are our articles that they are promoting their own products from. It's like the YouTube feature that mentions this is a paid promotion video. Now, Hodinkee is still highly more credible site than most people may think or may be aware of, so I guess you just need to come in with your own salt shaker. AB writes, yet another expert who cannot pronounce the name of the watch correctly. Submariner, pronounced Submariner, and you lose a load of credibility when you don't get the name of your subject right? Okay, AB, first of all, thanks for calling me an expert. I am not, but thanks. Second, yes, English is not my best suit. Frankly, my Tagalog is also very questionable. One might even think that I don't belong anywhere. I'm a free man. I'm unshackled by borders and laws. I'm probably a pirate. Third, I put out an APB for my credibility. It's been lost for a while, and so far the authorities couldn't find it. So if you have any sightings of my credibility, just let me know. Write to me in my email, or just comment in my comment section and I'll probably find it out. And fourth, let's listen to how Rolex pronounces Submariner.
It was constantly perfected over time. For those who push their limits always further and shine an ever new light on our world. The Submariner.
And that's how you pronounce the Submariner. Next, we will explore what makes the Yachtmaster great, why the Ski Dweller is one of the most underrated collections in Rolex lineup, and finally, why there's only one Chilean eye in their fold. John Henry writes, got the copper on sale for $450. It is fabulous. I especially like the loom on the hour markers. Not sure I would pay $600, but at $450 it was an insta buy for me. Yes, John Henry, you made a good decision about that. It's also an insta buy for me if I came across the new GMB 2100s at that price. Now remember, I bought my AWM 500 at just around $300, and it's still one of the best watches in my collection, if you could even call it a collection at all. Now, remember, G-Shock has some great execution and finishing on their really high-end models, and the wearability is incomparable to the kits that you readily find in AliExpress or in Amazon. Again, SKXMOD has some really good mod kits for it, but it doesn't compare with the original. Maratuda writes, horrible, cheap garbage he's actually talking about here. Is he a he or a she? He or she is talking about here the Artem loopless straps. Mine tore underneath. Impossible to adjust without damaging it. Feels like plastic. Must be paid reviews. Okay, now let's get one thing out of the way. Yes, Artem sent their watch straps to us for us to review and to keep. Now, as a product reviewer, I have mentioned quite a few good things about it, but I did also mention some criticisms, namely that the strap is longer. Mainly that's also because that I should have gotten like the shorter version of the strap, and that it also lacks the quick release spring bars, which I prefer, which is very quick to use and at the same time helps me dress up or dress down the watch. Now, I guess that's my excuse for being an unbiased product reviewer, but the fact is that there will be influences regardless of what or how I mention the review. Another thing is that most of these deals that I make with, at least with me, is that I deal with them at a per video basis. So when I'm done with the video, that's it. The deal is done and it's complete. With Artem, it's a little bit different. I continue to use Artem with my other video reviews simply because I chose to do it. I really like their manufacturing, I really like their products, and they're actually better qualities than the ones that I own. And I've owned quite a few, some of them cheaper and some of them more expensive, but Artem really does have the quality that is above the others that I've been reviewing. So one thing about what Mara told here is that it does feel like plasticky. I did not feel this sensation that he or she is feeling. To me, it's not plasticky. But I respect your opinion. So when buying Artem straps, please do keep my opinion and Mara's in mind so that you have a more unbiased shopper experience with Artem straps. And finally, to close out our video, here are some words of wisdom from Mr. Zelos. The Apple device, I won't call it a watch, is a throwaway appliance. It's a device built to be obsolete in 2 years or less. They are cold, they have no soul, and they have no place in my collection. And this comes from someone who did own some Apple devices in the past, including the ceramic Gen 2 edition, which was a cool build. But these aren't watches. Wish I had the chance to make this opinion into the video, but commenting is fine. Oh yeah, love the conversation with yourself thing. We should do a collab conversation video sometime, like what TGV and Long Island Mark do. That would be a hoot. Thanks, Mr. Zelos, and that collaboration will be coming in the near future, so watch out for that. That will be all. See you next week. I'm willing to continue consuming. In this edition of Designer Notes, we're going to review another release from Swedish Design Shop. Coming in at 200. Wait, where's it? I have it actually here in my hand. There's been three watch sites. When I began as a watch enthusiast in this journey of hobby, that is not a coherent grammar. Hodinkee is actually headed for a disaster. Is headed for mediocrity. Not disaster, mediocrity. Yeah, well. At $289, this is one of the more affordable mecha quartz